Hello and a very warm welcome to the news on Sansad TV at 9 p.m. with me, Bhawna Nayar. Stay with us as we bring you the latest from G20 summit that's underway in Bali. There will be news from pole-bound state Gujarat as well. We will also be tracking other international stories and also news from economy, sports and much more. First up, the top 5 headlines this Tuesday evening. Path of diplomacy will have to be adopted to resolve Ukraine crisis, says Prime Minister Modi at G20 summit in Bali. Points out that today's shortage of fertilizers is tomorrow's global food crisis. Prime Minister Modi reviews Indo-US relations with US President Biden, holds bilateral meetings with head of states of many other countries, addresses Indian diaspora. 1,362 candidates filed nominations for first phase of Gujarat Assembly elections. Congress released list of its star campaigners. Birsa Munda's birth anniversary celebrated as Janjatiya Gaurav Divas across the country. President Draupadi Murmu, Vice President and Prime Minister pay tributes. And 8 billion hopes, 8 billion dreams. World's population crosses 8 billion. India to become world's most populous country next year. And some more news at a glance. Union Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav said access to finance and technology to developing countries is must to protect planet Earth. He said this at the ongoing COP27 summit at Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. The European Union will support any call to phase down fossil fuel use, its climate policy chief Frans Timmermans said. He was responding to India's push to include such a call in a final COP27 deal. President Murmu said tribal communities have enriched the nation with their arts, craft and their hard work. She paid tribute to tribal freedom fighters and unsung heroes on Janjatiya Gaurav Divas. Union Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal inaugurated international travelling exhibition Vaccines Injecting Hope in New Delhi. Exhibition aims to decipher and narrate the science of vaccines. Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan met with Finnish counterpart in New Delhi. Focus on collaboration on national education policy, early childhood education and care, teachers training and digital education. MSME Minister Narayan Rane inaugurated MSME Pavilion at India International Trade Fair in New Delhi. 74% of the stalls of MSMEs were given to women free of cost. Prime Minister Modi, Andhra Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy and the film industry mourned the demise of veteran actor Krishna. 80-year-old superstar died in a hospital in Hyderabad after suffering cardiac arrest. Chief Secretary S.C. Mohapatra said Odisha has potential to grow as a coastal shipping hub. He inaugurated the 2-day summit on Prime Minister Gati Shakti Multimodal Maritime in Bhubaneswar. Russia has criticized United Nations resolution seeking reparations from Russia for its war in Ukraine. Kremlin said it would do everything possible to stop the West from plundering its frozen assets. And US Space Agency NASA has said that it plans to launch its new mega moon rocket mission Artemis 1 tomorrow from Florida after 2 failed missions. Countdown has already begun at Kennedy Space Center. And tonight's lead story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called for a return to the path of ceasefire and diplomacy to resolve the Russia-Ukraine conflict. He also opposed any restrictions on the supply of energy amid the West's call for sanctions against Russian oil and gas. Addressing the G20 summit in Bali, Prime Minister Modi said that climate change, COVID-19 pandemic and global impact of Russia-Ukraine conflict have caused havoc in the world. He ruled that the global supply chains are in ruins. Speaking at the session on food and energy security, the Prime Minister said that there is a crisis of essential goods all over the world and the challenge for the poor of every country is more severe today. The Prime Minister also noted that India's energy security is important for global growth as it is the world's fastest growing economy. US President Joe Biden, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also attended the summit. Continuing, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the Indian diaspora in Bali during his visit to Indonesia for the G20 summit. He said that India and Indonesia are working together in the 21st century. He said that India is a ray of hope for the world in the 21st century. He said that today India is working at an unprecedented scale and speed, and the nation's talent, technology, innovation, industry have made an identity for themselves before the world. He said that many big companies of the world have Indian origin CEOs. Take a listen.
आज भारत अभूतपूर्व स्पीड पर काम कर रहा है और अप्रत्याशित स्केल पर काम कर रहा है। आज का भारत अपनी विरासत पर गर्व करते हुए, अपनी विरासत को समृद्ध करते हुए, जड़ों से जुड़े रह करके आसमान छूने के लक्ष्य के साथ विकसित भारत बनाने के लक्ष्य को लेकर के अब निकल पड़ा है।
Prime Minister Modi said that relations between India and Indonesia stood together during both good and difficult times. In 2018, when Indonesia was affected by an earthquake, India immediately started Operation Samudra Maitri. Prime Minister praised Indonesia for welcoming people from Indian community with open arms.
अगर सुख में साथी हैं, तो हम दुख में भी उतने ही साथी हैं। जब विरासत साझा होती है, जब मानवता के प्रति आस्था समान होती है, तो प्रगति के लिए भी समान रास्ते बनते जाते हैं।
Prime Minister Modi held several bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the G20 summit. Prime Minister Modi and US President Joe Biden reviewed the state of India-US partnership in sectors like critical and emerging technologies and artificial intelligence. The two leaders also discussed topical global and regional developments. Prime Minister and Chinese President Xi Jinping met during a dinner hosted by the President of Indonesia in Bali. Prime Minister also met UK's Prime Minister Sunak, their first face-to-face interaction since he assumed power last month. He also met French President Emmanuel Macron and held talks on several key issues. He met Senegal President and Chairman of the African Union, Macky Sall. Prime Minister Modi also interacted with Mark Rutte, Netherlands President. Indonesian President Joko Widodo welcomed Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Bali ahead of the beginning of the summit. The annual G20 summit opened on Tuesday with world leaders set to discuss over the next 2 days challenges triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic and more recently topped by Russia's war in Ukraine. Take a look.
In his remarks at the G20 summit, Indonesian President Widodo asked world leaders to follow the UN Charter and called for an end to the war. He said all leaders have responsibility towards the people of the world. Being responsible meant following the UN Charter consistently and must end the war. It will be difficult to move forward if the war is not ended, he said, adding that the world must not slip into another Cold War. Recover together, recover stronger was the theme picked by Indonesia when it took charge last year. But the Russia-Ukraine war that began in February now threatens food and fuel shortages. The leaders will hold 3 working sessions on food and energy security, digital transformations and health. A day ahead of the summit, US President Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi met for 3.5 hours in Bali, striking a conciliatory tone against the backdrop of a strain in their ties over self-ruled Taiwan. Russian President Putin has opted out of the Bali summit and sent Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to represent the country. But Western leaders who seemed to be preparing for a possible showdown over Russia's invasion of Ukraine are unlikely to back down. Russia can expect flak, for instance, when the summit discusses food and energy security. There is also a possibility of Ukrainian President Zelensky virtually addressing the gathering. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And now news from poll-bound Gujarat. 1,362 candidates have filed their nomination papers for the first phase of elections to the 89 seats of the Gujarat Legislative Assembly. Key candidates who are in the fray in the first phase include Gujarat Chief Minister and BJP's Chief Ministerial candidate Bhupendra Patel from Ghatlodiya seat in Ahmedabad. Aam Aadmi Party's Chief Ministerial candidate Isudan Gadvi is contesting from Khamboliya seat of Devbhoomi Dwarka district. Voting will be held in the first phase on 1st December for 89 seats of the state's 182-member assembly. 95 candidates have also filed nomination papers for the second phase of elections to be held on 5th December. The last date for withdrawal of nominations for the first phase is 17th November. For the second phase, the last date is 21st November. The counting of votes will take place on December 8th. Moving on, the nation on Tuesday remembered tribal leader Birsa Munda on his birth anniversary. Many programs were organized across the country on the occasion. President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Speaker of Lok Sabha paid tributes to Birsa Munda on the occasion. President Draupadi Murmu paid tributes to the tribal leader at his memorial at his birthplace, Ulihatu. Saluting the tribal freedom fighters, she noted that tribal communities had made a great contribution to the freedom struggle. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankad and Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla paid homage to the tribal leader in the Parliament House complex. The Vice President said his love for the motherland and courage will continue to inspire all Indians. Paying tributes to Munda, Prime Minister Modi said he had drawn inspiration from the tribal community for various schemes of his government.
भगवान बिरसा मुंडा केवल हमारी राजनीतिक आजादी के महानायक थे, इतना ही नहीं है, वो हमारी आध्यात्मिक, सांस्कृतिक ऊर्जा के संवाहक भी थे.
President Draupadi Murmu stressed the need to learn from the dedication of the tribal society towards forest conservation to fight challenges like climate change and global warming. The President was addressing the Janjatiya Gaurav Divas program in Shahdol district of Madhya Pradesh. She recalled the struggles of tribals to ensure the conservation of forest lands during the British rule in the country. The President also launched several development projects in Bhopal.
मध्य प्रदेश में समावेशी विकास के लिए नए आयाम स्थापित किए गए हैं. राज्य ने विकास के कई मानकों पर प्रभावशाली उपलब्धियां हासिल की है. मध्य प्रदेश के ग्रोस स्टेट डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट में पिछले एक दशक की अवधि में लगभग 3.5 गुना वृद्धि हुई है.
Slipping into a very short break here, lots more coming up on the other side. You stay tuned to Sansad TV for more news. Welcome back after the break. You're watching the news and time now to take a look at all the latest developments from the Russia-Ukraine war front. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appealed to the leaders at the G20 summit to press for an end to Russia's war on Ukraine. In a video address at the G20 summit being held in Bali, Indonesia, Zelensky called for nations to stand up to Russia and defend Ukraine's sovereignty. He also reiterated 10 conditions for ending the conflict, including a complete withdrawal of Russian troops and full restoration of Ukrainian control of its territory. He also called for an international conference to cement the key elements of the post-war security architecture in the Euro-Atlantic space, including guarantees for Ukraine. The United Nations General Assembly on Monday called for Russia to be held accountable for its conduct in Ukraine. The UNGA voted to approve a resolution recognizing that Russia must be responsible for making reparations to the country. The resolution was supported by 94 of the Assembly's 193 members. Ukrainian ambassador to the UN, Sergei Kesletsia, told the General Assembly before the vote that Russia has targeted everything from factories to residential buildings and hospitals. Meanwhile, Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said that the West was trying to draw out and worsen the conflict. India had abstained from voting on the resolution. Ukrainian Defense Ministry released footage from Chornobyivka near Kherson showing soldiers touring a destroyed airbase that was used by Russia. The visuals show the aftermath of fighting between the Russian and Ukrainian troops before the retreat by Russians. The footage was released on the day Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Kherson. A video taken on Monday showed the destruction at the strategic Antonovsky Bridge, which linked Ukraine Kherson city to Russian-controlled territory. The video showed whole sections of the bridge missing. A Kherson Regional Council official said that Russian troops had blown up the structure after retreating from Kherson on Friday. The bridge was the only nearby road crossing from Kherson to the eastern bank of the Dnipro River controlled by Russian troops. The next road crossing across the Dnipro is more than 70 kilometers from Kherson city. And now news from some other parts of the globe. Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Bhupendra Yadav, on Tuesday delivered India's national statement at COP27 in Egypt. India has firmly resisted calls for developing countries to raise ambitions at the ongoing UN Climate Summit. It has said that goalposts are being shifted constantly, while rich nations have enormously failed in delivering the technology and financial resources needed for low-carbon development. Take a look at this report.
At the Ministerial High-Level Roundtable on Pre-2030 Ambition, Union Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav said some developed nations must reach net zero even before 2030, as their goal to become carbon neutral by 2050 is not enough at all. Net zero means achieving a balance between the greenhouse gases put out into the atmosphere and those taken out. India said developed countries must take the lead in raising ambitions, as the bulk of finance and technology is available with them. Last week, developed countries proposed that discussions on a new plan to scale up mitigation and ambition should focus on all top 20 emitters, including India and China, and not just the rich nations which are historically responsible for climate change. However, India blocked the attempt with support from China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal and Bhutan. At the roundtable on Pre-2030 Ambition, India said ambition from the developing countries is not meaningful if the time required for low-carbon development is not recognized. A key theme at COP27 is a call for rich nations to deliver technology and finance to help developing and poor countries fight climate change. Developed countries are expectedly pushing developing nations to further intensify their climate plans. In a reference to the US's carbon offset initiative, Energy Transition Accelerator to fund clean energy projects in developing countries, Yadav said increasing ambition requires public action, which includes public sources of climate finance and technology. India emphasized that just transition in developing countries is simply about enabling low-carbon development. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Moving on, the global population hit 8 billion on Tuesday after adding 1 billion people in the last 12 years. India is on the cusp of overtaking China as the world's most populous country next year. Calling it a global milestone, the United Nations said it signals major improvements in public health that have lowered the risk of death and increased life expectancy. But it added that the number is a clarion call for humanity to look beyond the numbers and meet its shared responsibility to protect people and the planet, starting with the most vulnerable. 8 billion hopes, 8 billion dreams, 8 billion possibilities. Our planet is now home to 8 billion people. The United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, tweeted, India is projected to surpass China as the world's most populous country in 2023. The Population Prospects report said that India's population stands at 1.412 billion in 2022 compared with China's 1.426 billion. As the world gears up for Christmas, for the first time, the lights on London's Oxford Street will not be switched on 24 hours a day due to the ongoing energy crisis. The dazzling stars will be illuminated from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. this festive season. Let's find out more.
London's Christmas lights switch on in early November across the capital. Sculptural angels create a twinkling show of Christmas magic above Regent Street. And on the major shopping area of Oxford Street, a canopy of stars hangs in the air. 5,000 of them will bring some cheer to the winter streets. But the display will use 2/3 less energy than last year. For the first time, the stars will be only lit up in daylight hours. Earlier, they would have been on 24 hours a day. The lights will come on at 3 o'clock and go off at 11 p.m. in order to save on power. The twinkling Christmas stars are made up of 3 lakh LED lights that are much more energy efficient than standard light bulbs. The stars are also recyclable and will be reused and repurposed for future Christmas lights schemes. Sustainability is the big factor, and so is renewable energy. With UK inflation at a 40-year high, there is uncertainty for retailers. But shoppers are happy, giving the thumbs up for the vibrant Christmas displays. They say the economy might be gloomy in the UK this year, but at least the lights add some Christmas cheer. Just not 24 hours a day anymore. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And time to see all the action happening in the world of sports. Hockey India named the 23-member Indian men's hockey team for the upcoming tour of Australia, set to begin from November 26th in Adelaide. Harmanpreet Singh has been named the captain of the team and Amit Rohidas has been picked up as the vice-captain. BCCI will conduct IPL 2023 auction on December 23rd in Kochi, Kerala. 10 teams will be part of the auction. In tennis, Andrei Rublev beat fellow Russian Daniil Medvedev 6-7, 7-6, 3-7, 6-7 in 3 sets to open his ATP Finals campaign with a victory. And Novak Djokovic beat Stefanos Tsitsipas 6-4, 7-6, 7-4 on Monday in the ATP Finals in Turin. Former world number 1 tennis player Novak Djokovic will be granted a visa to play at the Australian Open in January 2023. The unvaccinated Serbian player was barred from the country until 2025. The Australian government is set to overturn the ban. India B Women U19 won by 7 wickets against India A Women Under-19 in the quadrangular Women U19 T20 series 4th match of the tournament held today. And with that, it's a wrap of today's bulletin. News and updates continue on the other side. Thank you for watching. Good night. Namaskar.